There we go. All right. So tonight we have Ellen Saul with us. And Ellen, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself because you have some really fun things to talk about. And I'm excited to hear about it, but I know you'll do it best. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm
So
happy to do that. All right. So just jump in, huh?
you got it. You got it.
Okay.
And this is a very casual conversation, and I
Yeah.
will watch for Faye and Kelly to
Thank
join
you.
us as
That's
we go
great.
along.
Okay. So my name is Ellen Saul, and I'm a therapist, a psychotherapist, and a licensed psychologist. As you can see on the screen, I use she, her pronouns. I'm also an entrepreneur, a writer, a photographer, a speaker and trainer, as well as a wife, mother, stepmother, grandmother, and ex-wife. And so I'm going to be talking tonight about boundaries and all the things that I had to learn when my first marriage ended. And I was like, the rug was pulled out from under me, and I had a whole lot to learn as fast as I could learn it. So I just want to sort of an FYI for all of us that divorce or any major turning point in our lives is a time when early trauma can resurface. And sometimes it feels like our child self is taking over and leaving us feeling less competent and capable than we might have been. So as I'm sharing my story and this information, I just encourage you to invite the child parts of yourself to come sit on your lap so they're safe and connected with you as we spend this time together. So I've listed the 7 steps on your handout, and I'm just going to, we'll be checking them off as we're talking. And as you get to hear some of my story, I'll sort of note where they fit in. And figuring out these 7 steps has less to do with my particular story than it does with the turning points that everybody hits in their lives. So divorce is certainly one of them. The death of somebody, a move, graduating from school and leaving home. There are a lot of them that we've met at different times. So what I want to invite you to think about is one of those points where kind of everything changed. It could be recently, but it could be back a while ago. And so I invite you to think of a turning point that you've experienced. And as we're talking about these 7 steps, just kind of notice and see if you notice places where you are at in that turning point connected with those 7 steps. So I'm just going to read off the 7 steps, and we'll sort of come back to it a little later on. So the first step is recognize your pain and just be able to say, yep, things are really tough right now, and it's really hurting. Step 2 is get some help for support and change. And obviously being here is one of those places that you guys have figured out to get some help and some support, and I just think that's fantastic. Step 3 is identify your current boundary beliefs. So people talk about boundaries a lot, and I think what is behind boundaries is beliefs that we carry, which we may not even be aware of, that help us, that sort of lead us to those rules in our lives. Like, I should do this, or I should never make anybody mad. I should always help anybody, even if I'm exhausted, things like that. So identifying those and beginning to become conscious of those. And it's those beliefs that lead us to the actions, which either help us keep good boundaries or don't keep good boundaries, and we end up getting walked on. Step 4 is to kind of look at those boundary beliefs that we've identified and recognize, assess, do we want to keep them as they are, or do we need to update them? Are they not working as well as we'd like them to? Step 5 is create new boundary beliefs or change the ones and practice them with ourselves on the inside. Step 6 is practice those boundary beliefs with other people. And then step 7 is celebrate your changes in yourself. Celebrate the heck out of every single step forward that you've had to make. So this is a piece of my story. When I was about 35, my husband of 10 years left me after an affair that he had kept secret for months. My dream of happily ever after lay expiring in the aftermath. I felt devastated. I felt like he'd betrayed me. I alternated between hoping somehow that our relationship could be healed and then feeling very hopeless about the future other times. I just felt like tsunami waves of sadness were rolling in, lots and lots of tears. And I felt really, really angry, although I didn't even want to admit it because in my family, that was a real no-no. I was disoriented. My brain was foggy. I couldn't remember things. Shame, again, just kind of rolled in, burying me again and again, kept running through my head. This must be my fault. I'm not good enough. And I couldn't think how my life could go forward with all the change and loss. I was in so much pain, I didn't see how I would ever feel good again. And maybe you can identify with some of this yourself. I literally believed I would never laugh again. I'm happy to report that didn't happen. I was resisting the impending divorce with everything I had in me. And the last thing I could imagine was anything good coming out of this. So a definition, I thought I was losing my marriage. What I came to realize was that I had lost myself in a bunch of ways, and that had been going on for years. And so that's where the connection with boundaries comes in. Oftentimes when we think about boundaries, we think about limits, kind of like the outside dimensions of a piece of property or the size of your personal space bubble around you. And in an interpersonal setting, boundaries often connotes the ability to say no or to set limits to interactions. So as I said, I've expanded the definition of boundaries as I've worked on this book. I identify boundaries as the actions we take to get ourselves through life. These actions come in response to the boundary beliefs that we're going by, what we might call our rules for life. Those boundary beliefs may be conscious, like I should brush my teeth every day, or they may be much more unconscious, like there was a rule in my family, it's not okay to have fun. Those boundaries may work well for us and result in positive outcomes. I brush my teeth and I avoid cavities. Or they may not work so well and bring outcomes that are painful or unsatisfying, like it's not okay to have fun, it's only okay to be responsible and work hard all the time. Why is my life so dull and unhappy? So what I experienced during separation and divorce were multiple situations where my old rules just weren't working for me. So some of my old rules were, I should be able to make everybody happy. There must be something wrong with me because I'm not succeeding. And every time I said this to myself, I felt awful. I began to realize that some of my old rules weren't realistic or maybe weren't even true. So I'm just wondering if that sounds familiar to any of you, saying things to yourself and recognizing that maybe, other people thought some other things and maybe I could look at mine. So I couldn't help but feel lots of pain. And I had been journaling, and I learned from a woman named Lucia Capacchione. She wrote a wonderful book called The Power of Your Other Hand and one called The Recovery of Your Inner Child. I learned how to write to my younger self by starting a sentence with my dominant hand and asking her something, and then putting my pen in my other hand and letting her answer. So when I did that, she let me know what she was upset about, and I began to learn to listen to what she felt and respond to what she needed. That was a place where I really connected deeply with step one, that I was listening to her pain instead of pretending it wasn't there. So if you want to, and you've been thinking about a turning point in your life, and you want to just make a couple of notes on your paper, what are the ways that you recognize, or you could just say them out loud, what are some of the ways that you recognized you were in pain? if anybody wants to unmute and just,
So when I was 6, my little sister died and she was 4. And that, I don't remember my childhood other than one incident prior to that.
Wow.
And then there was this terrible death of this beautiful little girl.
Wow.
And that was really significant, but I don't know then where it went from there, just how it fits. But I'm sure it does because it keeps coming up, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks. Anybody else want to Faye, I want to say welcome. I'm Ellen Saul. I'm really glad you're here. We're just working with the handout that Pat sent out if you have it available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jody or Lynn, do you have anything to share?
Could you state the question again, please?
Oh, sure. I'm just wondering if thinking back on some of these turning points that you may have been through, what were ways that pain showed up in your life? And did you notice it right away, or did you try to ignore it and pretend everything was okay?
I've been in pain my whole life. I have
And
a lot of loss and I have a lot of things. And so just the way I've managed it at different times. My mother died when I was 8 of MS. My father remarried 13 months later. Woman with 3 children. They moved into our house. My life was turned upside down, but it's also been, it's just been, and the latest, of course, for me was COVID. Just everything falling apart around the pandemic, but it's just, I'm on a really high powered, and then maybe that's not the word. I'm on a real trajectory to really get past a lot of my
great
stuff in this lifetime. And it is not fun.
It is hard. You're right. It is really tough. Yeah.
I thought you were in the
Okay.
All right.
TV off down there then?
Yeah, I told you I had a meeting at 7.
I forgot.
I can add, I kind of almost can copy what Jody had said, the same thing. There has been a lot of loss. Lost my only sibling, and I was in charge of him and his children during the passing. Same thing handling my parents' lost, grandparents, and my in-laws. And now as I move towards retirement, my husband has a chronic illness. And so I'm kind of like, this is how I feel like that I'm just starting a new chapter. And there's been so much loss, it's hard to figure out how to add new and how to add happy.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, Faye, do you have anything you want to share about pain in your life?
Well, okay. So I guess I've got sound. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, because I've been having problems getting the sound.
Oh, no, we got you.
It's working.
Okay, very good. So you wanted to know what? What was the question?
Just wondering if you, thinking about some of these turning points in your life, kind of where everything fell apart or sort of ended up feeling like you had to start over, what were some of the ways that pain showed up for you? And were you able to acknowledge it? Did anybody help you acknowledge it?
I've had several turning points, but I guess I was raised that you just handle it. You just, so that's what I've always done, is just handle it. Yeah.
Kind of suck it up. Yeah.
Yep, that's right. That's how my dad taught us kids to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we're going to go on and I'm just going to share a little bit about some step 2 things, getting some help for support and change. I was sitting in church one Sunday alone, And this line came into my head that I didn't know that I'd ever heard before. And the line was, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in your weakness." And I just sat there, I was kind of blown away, but that feeling that maybe something good could happen out of how this painful place that I was in felt hopeful. And it was a mystery to me where the line had come from, but I found it sometime later on in 2 Corinthians verse 12. So as weeks and months went by, I joined a different church because the church where I was going couldn't deal well with my pain. They didn't want me to be feeling pain. And I felt like I was judged there. And so I found a different church where I was accepted. And I found a support group for divorced women, a bit like what you're experiencing here with Rediscovering You. An acquaintance grew into a friend and gave me the Al-Anon book, One Day at a Time. And I started reading a page every day. That was really helpful. I found a therapist. And before I had even identified it, I was using step 2, getting some help for support and change. And so maybe if you want to, just a word or two about what has been helpful to you, or who has been helpful to you in this process that you're experiencing.
I'm sure mine has been my friends. I have many wonderful friends, and they've always been there more or less, to help, to just stand behind me and encourage me or whatever, because I've gone through 2 divorces. And now I have cancer. So,
oh, wow.
So it's
Sorry,
just, but it is what it is.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you. Thank you.
I grew up on a farm and went to a 1-room country schoolhouse. So there weren't a lot of kids or friends or whatever. And my biggest support were my horses.
Yes. Animals can be amazing that way.
Yeah. Yep. Just that was where I would always turn.
Yes, that's wonderful. Yep.
Okay.
Jody, Lynn, anything you want to put in here? I don't want to shut anybody down. And it's okay to say pass. So it's
Well,
just like
I've done a lot of things, a lot of different spiritual growth things.
Yeah.
I was dating a man in 1990 who I knew well and good he was not the right person for me, but I was one of those women that wanted nothing more than to be accepted and cherished for who I was. And but I know now that that relationship was the purpose of that was that he said to me one day, you are codependent. And he was a child of adult alcoholics. And he said, you need to go to Al-Anon. And I said, well, can I go with you to your people? And he's like, no, I'm in a men's group and whatever. Anyway, so of course, like most people who go to Al-Anon, and I went for 17 or more years.
Yeah.
I have no alcoholism in my family, but I have a lot of, I think my father was an enabler and my stepmother was a dry, she did not drink, but there was a lot of anger. And so I went into that group thinking, I'm going to fix this relationship and he won't be able to leave me, And out of all the relationships, he's one of the few men that I could care less about. But I know that this was the purpose in getting in and seeing, and I have, I haven't gone to Al-Anon in a long time. I sort of got I don't want to say sick of, but I resented. I would go because I thought I should go. And then it got to the point where I just got tired of hearing people whine. And not that, and it's people have their stories and we all have our stories. So it wasn't so much about that, but I have had it and I still struggle with this particular boundary. So in Al-Anon, they say you're only responsible for your response and actions. So I still to this day do not know where that boundary lies between effort and so putting in effort and doing whatever you can to facilitate something to happen,
Mhm.
or getting in someone else's stuff and setting a boundary. And I mean, I've thought about this for 20 years and I
I
still
totally hear
I
you.
do not have the answer.
Yeah.
And I think it just depends on the situation. So, but I've also done women, so Women for Women courses with Carol McCall, who I've done many, many, many different programs, and they all bring something different to
Yeah.
me. But the place that I've been in for the last couple of years has been more about loving my inner child, because I hated her.
Yeah.
And I hated her because she wasn't perfect enough and she wasn't able to take care of or manage things the way
Yeah.
I was expected to manage things.
I'm sorry. Yeah, those are really tough. And cheers for you for choosing to work on loving her. That's a big deal.
Well, I took the Artist's Way course recently with
Oh, I did too.
with a friend of mine. I took it in January and it was interesting. It was a good thing to do. It's really hard for me to do it was hard for me, excuse me, to be up so early to do my morning pages. And although I found a lot of enlightenment in those pages, but
Wonderful.
anyway.
Yeah. Thanks, Jody. Yeah. So step 3 is identify your current boundary beliefs. So getting conscious of those sort of rules for self that run through our head. So one day when I was complaining to God, some novel ideas came into my head. It was kind of like God was talking to me and saying, I've been trying to get your attention for a long time. It didn't work when I whispered to you, when I spoke to you, or when I tapped you on the shoulder. I really wanted to get your attention. So I kind of had to acknowledge what I was hearing. I knew what God was talking about. Times when I hadn't spoken up when something was wrong, times when I'd silenced myself instead of saying what I wanted or what I was or wasn't willing to do. And so I started thinking about what made me choose to be quiet. And as I worked to find the answer to this, I got clear that my behavior had to do with the boundary beliefs that ran through my head. Things like, if I say anything about this, he'll get mad and I can't risk that. He won't like it if I don't agree with him and he might leave. What I want isn't a value, only what other people want. Good codependent beliefs. You can probably recognize, Jody. So here is where I began identifying the boundary beliefs that I had been living by for lots of years. Some of them were positive, but a number of them were pretty negative. So there's step 3. So that might be, you might have some thoughts you can jot down if you want to, or give me your one of your boundary beliefs that you've begun to change, perhaps. What's something that you can identify with as like one of those rules for yourself that you have run in your head a lot of times? I should what? Go ahead, Faye.
I believe I've learned how to say no and not feel guilty.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's been a big thing.
No kidding.
Yeah, it is. It's but I also am married and I'm living in his home and whatever. If I want to change anything or add anything, there's a no. And I don't know how to handle his no. I mean, because it hurts because it's something that I really want to do. And
Mhm.
this person said, no, it's like my father. You know, that's how it feels, like my dad or something. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm making a note.
okay.
And what do you do then? Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Okay. So step 4 is assess your boundary beliefs and keep them or update them or chuck them. How did it feel when I was silent? It felt awful. Everything in me felt shameful and scared. How did it work out when I was silent? Not very well. He got mad anyway. Slowly, I became more conscious of what I was believing and that some of these beliefs weren't working for me. So I was using step 4, assess your boundary beliefs and choose to keep or update them. And that's what you've been talking about, Faye. The old rule was never say no or something like that. And you've decided it's okay to say no. And
Right.
that's a big deal. That's what we do have control over, what we will do or won't do. Anybody else want to toss in one of those boundary beliefs that you've begun to change?
No.
Well, I have something to say about boundaries.
Mhm.
When I have set boundaries with people that I loved, friends, whatever, and two women friends in particular that I had, one for over 35 years, the other one for many, many years. I
Mhm.
set a boundary with them and they basically said, fuck you, and they walked away. So they didn't respect the boundary that I set.
Right.
And so, I guess it was just cleaning house and they took the reins and did me a favor, but it was very hurtful because I felt like I was finally stepping up and doing something that was really important for me, and it
It
didn't
would have
matter.
it would have been nice if they had supported you, wouldn't it?
Gosh, yes.
Yeah, I really hear you on that one. And I think that's one of the things that we'll talk about a little more when we talk about working on setting your boundaries with other people, that I can ask something of somebody else. And if all I want is a yes from them, I'm probably going to get really disappointed because a lot of times people aren't ready to go with that. So I've discovered if I can be ready myself to support their no as well as their yes, and then be clear how I'm going to proceed after that. So that, because if it's a deal breaker and they say, no, I'm not going to do this, then probably it is time to end the relationship, So that's a hard one though. And it's really painful when people basically say, F you. Yeah, I hear you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So as I worked with these beliefs, I realized that they came from my experience in my family growing up. There's a book called Atomic Habits. The author is James Clear. He says, your identity emerges out of your habits. You are not born with preset beliefs. Every belief, including those about yourself, is learned and conditioned through experience. And the great piece about that is we can choose different beliefs for ourselves. We have all this stuff that we took in along the way, but we're not stuck with staying with it. So I discovered that I could choose new boundary beliefs which work better for me. Instead of saying it must be all my fault, I practice saying I am not responsible for the choices other people make. And the more I practiced saying this to myself, the better I felt. Less scared, more confident, more adult, less childlike. So this is an example of step 5, create effective new boundary beliefs and practice them with yourself. Because we really do have to practice. We don't just automatically, oh, I could say this to myself and then we automatically do that. No, we fall into the old piece of again and again and again. Anything that comes to mind that of some of those boundary beliefs that you've already changed or started to change or working on changing?
In the past, I was in a class where we talked a lot about beliefs and how beliefs create our experiences and our experiences confirm our beliefs, and around we go. Okay. And so the first thing I had to learn was what beliefs I actually had. And I identified those whenever I was saying I have to, I must, in order to, you need to, you should,
yep.
all of those things were belief statements. And the way I learned about them was to listen to what other people told me their beliefs were, because I couldn't find my own beliefs. Okay. I figured I'd gotten rid of all of them, but it became a really interesting experiment to listen to other people and be able to say, that's an interesting belief. Is it
Right.
true? Is it not true? I don't know. For you, it could be.
Would it work for me? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
learning, just figuring out what it was I did believe, and then recognizing that that belief did serve me in the past, but going forward, I'm going to make a conscious choice to have a new belief. And so I used a physical experience of saying, in the past,
Oh,
I
nice.
believe this. Yes. Going forward, I'm going to believe this. And
Nice.
that seemed to be able to help me just process and stay more focused on the new belief, because there was the physical tossing about without saying it wasn't a good belief. It served me to this point.
Right.
And so that was something that I learned that was very helpful for me.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate that.
And I love that. Thank you so much for saying that, Pat. That just kind of clicked with me, because a lot of times I think of, maybe I also don't know my beliefs, and I really haven't thought that much about them. I guess I've always been one of those people that's just like one foot in front of the other. You just do it. And so that, physically showing the past and the future is just, like I said, it really clicked. So thank you for sharing that.
Great.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
That. So the rubber hit the road when I realized that I needed to learn to take no shit. I had to figure out how to respond differently to my ex-husband's anger and controlling behavior. I needed a new boundary belief, and I found it with this one. I deserve to be treated respectfully. Then I also had to figure out the words to convey that and a plan for what to do if my words were dismissed and disrespect continued. So some resources showed up. Somebody told me about a book called The Verbally Abusive Relationship by Patricia Evans. And that has been absolutely one of the best resources I've had. She talks about that there's two ways people do relationships. One, it kind of looks like this, and it says, I matter, and I know you matter too. And when things are like that, you know it because your body's relaxed and you can solve problems together and work things out. The other one looks like this. She calls it power over, and it kind of sounds like rah, 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 whatever the words are. And when I'm in this situation, my best bet is to say to the other person, stop, change your voice, or this conversation's over. Now, sometimes at that point, the other person goes, I'm sorry, had a terrible day, shouldn't have been talking to you like that. And you can feel your body go, phew, we made it through. But a lot of times when you say stop, change gears, the other person goes, well, I don't know what your problem is, something like that. And then your only job is to take yourself out of the interaction. Walk out of the room, hang up the phone, whatever it is. Because what you're saying then when you leave is you can't have me present in the relationship and be yelling at me or whatever it is. And so that was really huge. There's another wonderful book called, a series of books called Parenting with Love and Logic that has a lot of great words for responding effectively when somebody's pushing back on your boundaries. So I learned to back up my words with action by leaving the interaction immediately if it got disrespectful. So I was able to incorporate step 6, practice your new boundary beliefs with others. I mean, I remember post-divorce being on the phone with my ex-husband and holding the phone out at arm's length because he was yelling so loudly. And then finally I'm going, why am I still on the phone? And I learned to quietly hang up and just, he didn't get me if he was going to be yelling. So maybe this is a good place to go back to the piece about, Faye, when you talked about that you wanted to do something and your husband is just saying no. And I'm guessing, have you talked to him and told him how it feels when he says no?
That would be very interesting. He's not good at conversation.
Uh-huh.
So this is how it is. And that, just, so I have a hard time. You know how there are some people in your life that bring out the worst in you?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's happened to me. I'm not always nice. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's not easy. And
I hear that.
I don't like to be that way.
Yeah.
And I say I'm not going to. And of course, then I do.
Well, Faye, I don't know if you have worked with a therapist or a coach or anybody like that, but those are some of the things that might be useful to do some problem solving together on, because those are really tough. I really have a lot of empathy for the situation that you're in and figuring out what, if anything, you can do about it.
Yeah, I do have a therapist, so that helps a lot. Yeah,
that's good. That's great.
Yeah.
I recently had an experience, and I'm still processing this, but an experience of an intimate relationship, and then no conversation, no anything, just simply silence. And I'm really puzzled by what is going on, what is happening, no response to any communication. And I'm not sure what to do with it or how to, and the piece that's going on for me is I deserve better than that kind of behavior. And so I'm making very conscious choices about any interaction I might have via email or phone with that individual. It's very minimal, but I'm doing things that I want to do. I don't really care if he wants to hear them or not. I'm still doing them because I want to do them. And it's very interesting to me. I've never experienced this before, so I'm really puzzled.
That's a tough piece. I have sometimes in a situation like that, often written to the other person to say, when this is happening, this is what I'm making of it. That's probably not what's going on, but I'm having a hard time understanding it. And I would like to talk with you about it. And you certainly have the choice to say, no, I don't want to. And if you say no, that probably will bring more distance into our relationship. And because I think a lot of times I have tried asking for something from someone, and then if I didn't hear anything back, I was kind of like stuck. I didn't know what to do after that. And I finally figured out that I can say things like, I'd like to, I mean, even a simple thing like trying to arrange.
Whoops, we just lost you, Ellen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. if we're just trying to figure out a plan for getting together, and I'm not hearing anything back, I might say to the other person, I haven't heard anything back from you, so I'm going to understand that means that for the time being, you're taking a break and you don't want to get together.
Okay.
So then I know how I can proceed from there. I
Mhm.
know what, how I've stated my end of things. And if they want to change that, it's their job to do something about it. So I don't have to do anything more with it. So that's been helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that and I thought, why is it my responsibility to do that?
It's mostly just so that you know where you stand. It's not about trying to make the other person do something, just saying, this is how I'm going to proceed from here.
Okay,
And if the person doesn't matter that much to you, don't even bother putting that much energy into it.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
If it matters to them, they'll probably pull themselves together and connect with you at some point.
yeah.
Those are hard pieces. Yeah,
Really, yeah, it really is a difficult situation for me personally.
absolutely. So step 7 is celebrate your changes in yourself. And so one of the beliefs that I came away from growing up with was you only get credit when the whole job is finished. The steps that get you there don't really count. And as a result of that, I wasn't very good at celebrating. In my mind, I didn't deserve to get any credit for anything except the final thing when the whole job was done. And I learned that there were actually other possible boundary beliefs about giving credit. There's a great book out there called Transforming the Difficult Child, The Nurtured Heart Approach by Howard Glasser. And he talks about energizing the positive parts of what's going on by paying attention, acknowledging the little steps, and giving credit, even partial credit, for the good stuff that's happening, even when there might be some bad stuff happening. So learning and then stopping focusing on the negative behavior. And so I took that to heart. And when I had a big project that I was trying to get done, I really set it up so I could cheer myself on and tell my friends what I'd accomplished for each of the little steps, not just waiting till the end. So that step 7 is celebrate your changes in yourself. And I really love getting excited about each step forward, especially baby steps, because I think it helps give us energy to take the next steps instead of getting worn out the further along I get. And I really love that we get to be here tonight celebrating each of us wherever we are on our journeys. So any thoughts that any of you have about ways that you celebrate yourself, ways that you appreciate, give credit to? Or is
There's
that
always
hard to do?
chocolate.
There is always chocolate, absolutely. Yep.
Unfortunately, I ate too much of it, so I had to stop. But
That's great.
Oh, that's good.
yeah, that business of learning how to celebrate is really tricky because you have to figure out, well, this is my belief. It's really tricky. You heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about figuring out what does it really mean to celebrate? And if you haven't done that, or you weren't raised with that,
exactly.
I mean, you don't know. And it was interesting because I was a daycare mom, and one day I saw this sheet of paper that had at least 30 different emotions on it. Those little faces with the words of different emotions underneath it. I was actually stunned. I only thought there were like 5 emotions.
Wow.
Never had never been exposed in my upbringing to, describing things differently beyond mad, sad, happy, glad, it was kind of it. And so that was learning how to celebrate has been a big job.
Absolutely. I mean, even things like saying, like, people didn't go around in my family saying, good job,
No.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so learning to say that to myself, woohoo, or anything like that was, I had to practice it. I had to work at it.
Yeah. 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 And what does it really mean to celebrate? Becomes really,
Yeah.
it is still a big thing. I
Yeah.
think I decided I'm very boring and I don't really know how to celebrate. So,
Well, that's one of those things that we can learn, isn't it?
well, and it doesn't have to include alcohol,
No, it doesn't. That's right.
Or chocolate. No.
or chocolate. That's gone a little too far now, Faye. You're taking out the chocolate.
Yep.
I kind of celebrate on my own.
Mhm.
I feel really good. So it's like I can get dressed nice and I can go somewhere and feel confident in who I am. And that to me is a celebration.
Absolutely.
It feels so good to
Mhm.
have that you respect yourself or you've completed something or that's how I celebrate. Is I just get excited and then I just go out and do something, that I've always
Yeah.
wanted to do. So,
Wonderful. Thanks,
yeah.
Faye. So looking back at my turning point, the end of my first marriage, it seems as if I was catapulted into a journey of change. It wasn't something I chose. I resisted those changes as much as I could. And I finally had to face the fact that I wasn't in control. And happily, I survived all the changes and I'm here today. Later in the process, I was able to let go of resisting what was. And I began actually to recognize some of the gifts in the difficulties. And I wrote down several of them, but one of the biggest ones was I began to be grateful to my ex-husband for leaving when he did. And this is like 30 years ago now, but I even recently recognized that the woman he was having the affair with, who later became his wife, I actually owe a debt of gratitude to her also, because I think if she hadn't been there pushing, he might not have left. And my life got a lot better when he did. So I just thought that one took a lot of years to get there.
I bet it did.
Yep. So I want to close, and then we'll have some time for more questions and things like that, comments that anybody wants to make, to just read you a little bit from the last chapter of the book. The chapter is called Taking the 7 Steps into the World. I can imagine you moving forward in your life in a new way. I'm confident you will find yourself making positive changes, perhaps just in your thinking at first, as you realize there are other options for you that you may not have considered before. You will know what's right for you. You will find the help you need, and you will create a life for yourself that continues to provide you with more satisfaction, more peace, and more wholeness. I wish you all the best as you continue to use these 7 steps to healthy boundaries to light up your path moving forward in your life. So I'm delighted to be able to come, and on the bottom of your sheet, if you're interested in the book, isn't out yet, 7 Steps to Healthy Boundaries, but if you'd like to know when it does come out, you can go to ellensaul.com, and there's a button to push to put in your email address so that I can keep in touch and let you know when the book comes out. And that would be great, because I'd love to keep in touch with all of you.
So it's 7 steps in.
The book is called From Pain to Power. I think it's at the top
okay.
of the steps. Yeah, it's the title of the book.
Okay.
At the top of the handout.
I will send you the handout again because Faye didn't get hers for some reason.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about
so
that.
I'll send it to you when we're done here. Okay. And then Ellen, keep us posted, because both Rediscovering You and Aging but Dangerous would love to make that book, to promote it to our readers.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'd be delighted.
Yeah, so
I just think boundaries is such a big deal, and it's like every part of our lives. It can't turn around without having to deal with the boundary piece. So
that's
yeah,
very true, very true. Other questions, anyone? Comments, things you'd like to share?
I have a comment.
Okay, Faye.
You set boundaries and you're feeling, but why didn't I know this 20, 30 years ago?
because because people were not talking about boundaries. I mean,
Right.
that is something that it is, and there was a lot of push to just do it the way we were raised. And you know, the Minnesota Nice piece you all are familiar with, that doesn't leave space for you to have a different idea than I have, and it doesn't leave space for me to say no, that's not going to work for me. Thanks for checking, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it would have been nice.
No kidding. No kidding.
Oh my God, yes. I was laughing when you were telling the story about God trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
My friend Sheila, who most of these women know about, was a 23-year crack cocaine addict and
Wow.
ended up in federal prison, right?
Yeah.
And the third time that she ended up in federal prison, in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., she fell out of the bunk bed, right? It hit the floor. And she was really mad at God at that point. And this is all in her book and stuff. She was really mad at God at that point and said, you know, either take care of this or take me out of here. Okay. I'm done. I'm not anymore. And he said, well, now finally, you're going to listen to me.
Yeah.
Those are the words she heard.
Yeah.
I've got your attention.
Right on.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you have to have a pretty big 2x4.
Yeah.
to
So
get their attention.
the book is, each chapter has some of my story, and then it has the exercises that I learned to help me get through that piece. And
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
yeah, so you can come away from having read the book. I couldn't put anywhere near all of it into this, but I thought I'd just get you acquainted with the 7 steps. But
Sure.
you'll get the story piece and then a bunch of tools that I think would be useful.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Yeah, we need to talk about a possible download that people could get of maybe some of those tools, or not some, but a tool and some background for signing up to be part of your book.
Yeah. So
And
yeah, we can do that.
Sure.
I do have one of them that I didn't know how we would be for time. Have any of you ever heard of a sway test?
No.
Oh,
Because I think if we could take about 5 minutes, I could show you how this works. And I find it is incredibly useful. So it uses our body's information to get a yes or a no, which is different from my head, because my head goes on the one hand and on the other hand, and there's this argument that goes back and forth. But my body gives a really clear yes or no to things. And I can show you how to do this if you'd like.
Sure. Go
Okay.
right ahead.
Okay, I'm going to stand up to do it. Actually, I'm just going to pull out my script piece for this, because so this is called a sway test or a muscle test, and it's a way to use kinesiology. And what this is mostly helps me with is I don't second guess myself. Once my body gives a good, clear message, then I get out of my head and my body is pretty clear. So I'm going to invite you to stand up where you are, if you can, and hold yourself loose on your feet so your body can sway back and forth as it needs to. So I will stand up too. And so I'm going to invite you to just put your hand on your chest, on your heart, and say to your body, show me yes. And then just, yep, and then be kind of loose on your feet so that your body can sway forward or back as it wants to. Show me yes. And I'll do it to the side. Okay, so that's, I'm not moving. Yeah, can you feel yourself moving forward? Yeah.
Oh, back,
Pardon me, Faye, what did you get?
backwards. No.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
It may be the other way around. So now say, show me no.
Show me no.
Yep. And see what your body wants to do with that.
It immediately went backwards.
Yep. And Faye, my guess is yours might have gone forwards.
You know, yeah, a little bit. It's almost like it's just steady at a certain place, but
Okay.
it's not going back.
And you can confirm this if by saying, my name is Ellen, which for me brings me forward. That's a yes. And if I say my name is Jody, my body goes back because my name isn't Jody. But Jody, if you said my name is Ellen, I'm guessing yours would go back. So what you can do, you can use this for checking with your body about all kinds of things. And I usually say the best plan is, and then whatever it is. The best plan is for me to eat strawberry shortcake for breakfast. Probably my body would say no to that. But it may be something not too complicated. Like the best plan is to go to the co-op and get some lunch, or the best plan is to go to McDonald's. And my guess is you would have your body would give you different answers for those. So it's sort of commonplace things. But my husband and I have used this for about 30 years. And we've done, the best plan is to sell the house. The best plan is to sell the house for so much. The best plan is to lower the bid. We've gone through the whole thing. It's just a way to be clear, to get a clear answer in a hurry instead of going over it and over it and over it and over it. And we even actually second guess each other less than we used to. So anyway, I thought maybe this is one of the tools that I teach in the book, but it's a way to just check out, all kinds of things. And there's all kinds of good videos online. You can just put in sway test, how to do a sway test, and get all kinds of feedback. Some people check their supplements every day with doing a sway test, what food to eat, all kinds of things like that.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, thank you. That's very fun. I hadn't heard of that before. I've heard
Okay.
of muscle testing, but doing it with your
It's
finger,
the same thing, but it's your whole body giving you,
Yeah.
showing it to you. Yep.
that's very interesting. Well, thank you, Ellen. This
You're
was
very welcome.
delightful. I'm so pleased. I'm glad everybody was able to join us.
Me
And,
too.
what a great night. This was good information.
All
Any
right.
last comments anybody has or questions? Nope, we're good. All right. Well,
Good,
thank you
yeah.
much.
Take
Thank
care.
Thank-
Thank you.
Okay.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Lovely to see you
Bye.
all. Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.